I'm Dr. Haris Khan. I'm presently working as Associate Professor of Orthodontics. Thankful to in this lecture, I will put forward some facts, explain some myths that are related to sliding mechanics and loop mechanics. This would be a brief lecture covering some of the major domains of clinical orthodontics. Well, as we all know that there are two mechanical philosophies in clinical orthodontics, that are either loop mechanics or straight wire technique. Well, loop mechanics is an integral part of the conventional edge wire system. Yeah. Conventional edge wire system in which different types of loops were built within the wire because the bracket do not have any sort of prescription built within it. So three-dimensional control of the tooth was done with the help of bracket and with the help of wire, and bracket was merely a unit engagement unit attached on the tooth. Then in 1972, Andrew made his straight wire appliance, and he introduced a straight wire technique because the straight wire appliance have brackets which have prescription built within them. They have three-dimensional positional control within them, so straight wires were basically used in them. So as prescription was built, the three-dimensional control was within the bracket, so the orthodontist theoretically don't need any wire bending in that technique. So those brackets were called the straight wire appliance, and the technique used was called the straight wire technique. But unfortunately, it has been more than 40 years after the invention of the straight wire appliance and the straight wire technique. But many orthodontists throughout the world are still resorting to the loop mechanics within the straight wire appliance because they feel that there are certain lacks within it. Though things are changing, but it's quite obvious trend in the world that loop mechanics are still used. Well, a survey done in early 2010 found out that 64% of the Brazilian orthodontics uses frictionless mechanics. Well, sliding mechanics are also called frictionless mechanics. These are done on straight wire appliance. While 20% uses more than one technique, and rest of the 16% uses the loop mechanics. So it's only the 16% of the orthodontics in Brazil that are still purely committed to loop mechanics, and the rest of the 20% either chooses between the loop mechanics and the sliding mechanics. And that's a general trend throughout the world. But even then, there's a craze, there's a fascination in young graduates about loop mechanics, wire bending. People travel abroad, people go for different workshops and to have better skills in loop mechanics. Postgraduate trainees go on long rotations to gain this skill. So when the straight wire appliance is there, why this fascination of loop mechanics is there? It's my personal view. I'm giving some personal views why people are still resorting to loop mechanics when the straight wire appliance is there. Well, these are the continuation of skill because our supervisors, when they were in their postgraduate trainees, they have learned loop mechanics on conventional edge wire system, because straight wire appliance was not very popular till early 90s, though it was made in 1970s. So as they have learned on loop mechanics, as they have gained this skill, they want to pass on this skill to the younger generation. It's a goodwill gesture, but it has its shortcoming. Well, loop mechanics are still the part of curriculum. Postgraduate trainees, even they do sliding mechanics in their clinical practice, are bound to make loops because one day they have to pass the exam, so they need to know how the loops are made, and they have to gain this skill. Then there's a sense of superiority, sense of legacy. Well, many orthodontists say that loop mechanics is something that differentiates you from general dentists who mostly do the sliding mechanics, because sliding mechanics are obviously much more easier. There's no special skill needed in sliding mechanics. Obviously there's knowledge needed, but no special skill is needed. Then there's lack of proper understanding of modern brackets. Well, there's so much advancement in the last 20 years in statewide appliance that many orthodontists who are quite busy in their clinical practice have failed to keep pace with those advancements, and they are still resorting to loop mechanics rather than moving to the statewide appliance. Then their financial interest. Well, a single day workshop in UK will cost you £250 per day. You know, professional loop mechanic workshops are quite expensive, so it will cost you £250 per day in UK. It will cost you around about $200 per day in United States, and it will cost you $300 per day, Hong Kong dollars, in Hong Kong, in Asia. So throughout the world, loop mechanics, wire bending workshops are quite expensive. Uh, if you see, they're even more expensive than implant workshop, because in implant workshop we get something at the end of the day, but in loop mechanics workshop, apart from skill, you get nothing. Uh, then it's a human psychology to avoid change. Change come very slowly. We accept change, even things are simpler for us, but if something is moving good for us, we do not accept change. Even if it's simpler, we do not accept change. I will give a brief history of orthodontics, and I will show you how orthodontics practices were made and how long it took for the orthodontist or the practitioner of orthodontics at that time to accept that change. Well, history of orthodontic brackets. Well, first written record to crack crowded or protruded teeth is found 3000 years ago. Orthodontic to crack malaligned teeth is found in Egyptians, Greek, and Etruscan culture and artifacts. Traditionally or historically, catgut was used, supported by some metal bands to align malaligned teeth. Well, the first documented record of a definite appliance, that is a blueprint of the modern orthodontic appliance, was put forward by Peripheral Short, who made the Benju appliance in 1700. So if you see, it took the human race, the human mankind 1700 years to make one definite appliance that looked like some modern appliance. Then there was many modification over the period of time in Benju appliance. It embodied made contributed in this appliance. Horace Hayden made some modification, Joseph Fox made some modification, then Saanich made some modification. These are different modifications of the Bendu appliance. If you see things, if you see the modifications, you will see that how things were made simpler over the period of time, how the mechanics were made simpler over the period of time. Then nothing is complete in orthodontics without Edward Hartley Engel. He's no doubt concerned, regarded as the father of modern orthodontics, because the appliances developed by him are actually provided the inspiration for modern orthodontic brackets. The modern pre-adjusted advice brackets are in fact developed from Engel advice brackets. Engel developed different appliances. These are E-arch, pin and tube appliance, ribbon arch appliance, edgewise appliance that was actually developed in 1923 and introduced in 1928. So if we see from the Benju appliance that was invented to 1780 to the edgewise appliance that was introduced in 1928. So it took another 200 years to make an appliance that looks like the modern orthodontic appliance. Even Engel made the advice appliance. It was not quite popular for some time. It took some time to be integrated in clinical orthodontics. So these are different modifications made by Engel. The first one is E-arch. It's one of the design of E-arch because Engel made 4 different designs of this appliance. The second one is a pin and tube appliance. This appliance was also quite complex. It is said that Engel himself and one of his pupils was ever able to master in placing this appliance. So this appliance was actually abandoned. It took like 6 years to abandon this appliance, 5 to 6 years, because there was pins soldered on the wires. Then the pins were put in the tubes, and that was soldered on the bands placed over the teeth. Then the wires were held in position with the help of softer gold wires. So eventually the ribbon arch appliance was made in 1915. The ribbon arch appliance was also quite complex. It was expansion appliance using a lighter force. So while insertion was difficult, to make things simpler, Engel eventually invented the edgewise appliance, which is facing, which was an appliance that was facing forward, so the wire could be inserted from front rather than up or down from the brackets. But this appliance does not have any three-dimensional movement built within it. So wires were bent to accommodate that discrepancy to have better aesthetic results. Well, over the period of time, there was many modifications in the straight wire appliance. This modification was made by Sven. He made the twin brackets, so the Siamese brackets. Then, for better rotational control, Lewis introduced his bracket, and those were modified by Lang. Gordon Provincial soldered brackets on the bands in such a way that they should express tip and top. So, Twinchler brackets, Winchler brackets have second and third order bandwidths within them, but they miss the first order bands. Well, Holwer suggested that the brackets should be angulated. They should have torque in the buckle segment equal to the proportion to the amount of movement. Then Steiner in 1953 introduced the 18.18 slot. This actually solved the torque problem with the loop mechanics. Leveling alignment was obviously better within them because the slots were smaller, so it give a greater interrapid distance. Well, these are the different modifications of edgewise appliance put forward over the period of time. The first one is the Siamese or the twin bracket. Sevan combined two edgewise bracket to have a better rotational control. Well, this modification was a landmark event in orthodontics because it actually simplified the sliding mechanics. It helped the sliding mechanics because wider the bracket, lesser would be the contact angle. Lesser the contact angle, lesser would be the friction. Also, wider the bracket, greater would be the momentum, and greater would be the control of the root position or translations in extraction, especially in extraction cases. Then the pre-adjusted edgewise bracket, Owen Lee in 1950 introduced commercially viable anterior brackets with built-in torque. Jarabax and James Frizzell built-in bracket with tip and torque and reducing the annual meeting of American Association of Orthodontists in 1960. So by the time of Antrio, first, second and third order bands were built within the brackets. So Antrio introduced in 1972 straight wire appliance, which has first, second and third order band widths within the brackets. He advocated that straight wires should be used with these brackets because everything is built within the bracket and you don't need to bend the wire. Antrio system was quite complex. There were 14 different series of brackets. There were separate brackets for translation and within translation extraction cases there were separate brackets for translation, how much translation you're going to aim. To make things simpler, in 1976, Roth introduced the Roth setup. These were certain brackets taken from both translation and non-translation series of Antrio brackets. So one bracket set can be used in all types of cases. In 1997, McLaughlin, John Barnett and Hugo Torres introduced the MBT system. That was basically a modification of Roth system and it was certain values taken from MBT system, which is high torque, low tip. The torque was increased to have better to accommodate certain situations to make sliding mechanics much more easier, and the tip was decreased to decrease the anchorage loss. That was a usual part of orthodontics. Many people were avoiding straight wire appliance because there was so much anchorage loss within it. To decrease the anchorage loss, they decrease the tip in the MBT system. Well, these are different edgewise brackets, and these are the pre-adjusted edgewise. These one have the first degree bands built within the brackets. These are accommodating the height of the slot. Then the other one is has a slot that are angulated through the base of the bracket to manage the tip of the brackets. Then slot is angulated over the base, or the base is angulated in such a way that torque should be expressed within the brackets. So In 1928, the Edgewise appliance was made. We had to do wire bending, and eventually uh, it started from 1972 to 1997. So it's like what, from 50 to 70 years it took to move from a bended wire to a straight wire. But some people even didn't accept it, did change. They're still on loops mechanics, and they're still resorting to loop mechanics. Well, stages of orthodontic treatment: selection of orthodontic brackets and their placement. Well, in conventional Edgewise system, there are three conventional stages. There are three major stages. These are alignment and leveling, space closure, finishing and settling. But in straight wire appliance, in readjusted straight wire appliance, there is another important stage, the start of treatment. That is a selection of orthodontic brackets, because the prescription is built within the brackets. There are many different types of prescription available in the market or different types of malocclusion. So it's necessary that one should select brackets according to the need. Then you should place the brackets right. Selection of orthodontic brackets. What selection of orthodontic bracket is quite important. It should be part of treatment planning if clinicians want to avoid wire bending during the course of orthodontic treatment. In selection of brackets, prescription, slot, visual distance width, power arms, and other accessory components are important, and it depends on case to case. And they will actually help you to avoid wire bending during the course of orthodontic treatment. In prescription of bracket, choose the right prescription. You can't choose a single prescription in all types of cases. Like what in class 2 div 2, you have to choose a high torque prescription for the upper incisors. In class 2 div 1 camouflage cases, you have to choose a low torque prescription for the upper incisors. So you cannot choose a single prescription for all type of cases. If you do so in your clinical practice, then you will eventually have to resort to wire bending to give a better finishing results or ideal finishing in the case. Then alternating the brackets or bands. Well, there's some examples where we alternate the brackets and bands. When we alternate the brackets and bands, things become different. Like what there's a difference in class 2 and class 1 molar finish. If someone is finishing the molar in class 1 relation, he needs a 0 degree offset over the molar bands or molar tubes. But if someone is aiming to finish the molar relation in class 2, focus class 2, like in the case of upper first premolar extraction only, the molar need only 0 degree offset. So if you want to make a 0 degree offset and your place is 10 degree offset tube, you need to give 2 ink bands in the wires. If you want to avoid wire bending, simply use the lower band from MBT system, a low tube from MBT system, the low 7 tube, which has minus 10 degree torque and 0 degree offset. So that will solve the offset problem for you, and you don't need wire bending then. Then there are class 3 camouflage cases. In class 3 camouflage cases, the lower canine should be upright. The lower incisor should be upright. One way of doing this is you have to reverse the tip on the lower canines. You can do wire bending. Just distally tip the lower canines. Lower incisor will become upright. Give negative torque to the lower incisors. The other way is use the MBT system with lower canine brackets. Alternate it. Like place the right canine bracket on the left canine and left canine bracket on the right canine. By doing so, you will alternate the tip. The tip will become negative rather than positive, which is in fact positive on the lower canines, but the torque will remain the same. So the camouflage will become much more easier without resorting to wire bending. Then there is combination of prescription. Well, if you get a class 2 div 2 case in which the lower incisors are retropline and upper incisors are also retropline, place MBT prescription, which is high torque in the upper incisors, and place Roth prescription on the lower incisors, because MBT prescription has minus 6 degree torque in the lower incisors, while Roth has minus 1 degree torque. You can also invert the brackets of MBT prescription in the lower on the lower incisor, which will have minus. In this way, the torque will become positive from minus 6 to positive 6. Like but class 2 growth modification case where you also want some camouflage effects. In class 2 growth modification case, class 21 growth modification case, the upper incisors are proclined. Use a rod prescription on the upper incisors, while the lower incisors are retroclined. Lower incisors are also proclined, or the growth modification applies tend to procline the lower incisors. You use this MBT prescription, which is -60 talk on them on the lower incisors. In clinical practice, we usually encounter situations where the maxillary incisors is badly placed due to crowding or other reasons. In case of frostbite, it's usually pelvic position and the crowding is there. Simply invert the upper left incisor brackets, either from Roth prescription or the MBT prescription. Inverting the bracket will reverse the torque, but the tip will remain the same. So when the torque is reversed, the lateral incisor has a positive tip torque, like but it is 12 degree in MBT prescription and I think 8 degree in Roth prescription. When you reverse the bracket, the torque will become negative. The root will come out, the crown will move in, and the torque problem will be solved. If you do not do so, you will level align the case with piggyback mechanics or any other mechanics of your wish. You need to give wire bending for proper position of the roots. Well, slots of the brackets. It's quite important to select the right slot. If someone is aiming for sliding mechanics, 0.22 slot is quite advantageous in sliding mechanics compared to 0.18 slot, which is more advantageous in loop mechanics because the interbracket distance is increased. If someone is aiming for piggyback mechanics like what impacted canines or parallel placed lateral incisors, use a 0.30 slot, which is a part of the bioprogressive technique, rather than using the 0.28 slot, because you are using an extra piggyback wire and insertion of this wire will be easier in 0.30 slot than 0.28 slot. Also in adult patients, many adult patients ask us that there should be some aesthetic options for them. We place aesthetic brackets on them. If you place aesthetic brackets, you are aiming for sliding mechanics, you will miserably fail with the conventional brackets. Purchase brackets, use brackets in plastic and ceramics which are metal slots, rather than going for sliding over the plastic or ceramics which will have a flowing effect and increase friction to a considerable level. Then the mesodistributed width for the bracket. Well, wide brackets are always better than narrow brackets if you are aiming for sliding mechanics. This was basically the concept given by Sven, who made the twin brackets. Wide bracket have less contact angle, wide bracket has greater movement to force ratio. Both these factors are quite important in sliding mechanics. They decrease friction and give us better rotational control. Better control over the root position in sliding mechanics. Power arms. Ideally, to have better root control or root position, the width of the bracket should be equal to the distance from the central resistance of the tooth to the middle of the bracket, but virtually it's impossible to make such wide brackets. So to manage this problem, to control the root position, manufacturers have added power arms to the bracket. Additional power arms will give extra length to the bracket and may force application closer to the center of resistance of the tooth. So if you are aiming for translation of some tooth, use power arms. There's no use if you place the but if you are using power arms and you are placing your elastic chains or ligatures within whole of the bracket, use the power arms. Power arms makes application of force delivery systems such as springs, power chains and elastic much easier and closer to the center of resistance. The equation is there. A is equal to B plus C is the distance from the center of resistance to the middle of the bracket. B is the width of the bracket and C is the length of the power arm. Also, the direction of power arm is very important. The power arm should be in the direction of translation. Power arms are usually present in brackets on the distal directions because mostly we have to retract the canine. Power arms are usually not present in the mesial direction, except few manufacturers make them. Especially, I've never seen a bracket on a canine which has a power arm mesial direction. But in case of class 3 camouflage cases, you need power arms because you are aiming for protection of the posterior segment teeth, and you need power arms on the mesial end of the bracket rather than on the distal end. Unfortunately, these sorts of power arms are not available, and the root control is quite poor in case of protection of the cases. Power arms or hooks and brackets. Well, if you are poor in wire bending and you want to do suckling by the help of elastic ligatures, by the help of elastics, extraoral elastics or intraoral elastics, use power arms on brackets. They will help you to avoid wire bending. They will help you to avoid placing Kobayashi hook on the brackets for the engagement of elastics. So power arms make the application of elastics much more easier. Accessory features. Well, if there is sterilization in the teeth, if you are aiming for reshaping of the crown form in the middle of the treatment, use vertical slots in the brackets. You can use auxiliaries which control the tip, which control and correct the tip during treatment. Also, if some crown is underdeveloped, use gingival offset bracket rather than giving bypass arches, because gingival offset brackets will decrease the rate of bond failure and also will help you to pass straight wire appliance. This was proved by a randomized clinical trial conducted by Thin in Institute 2009. Placement of orthodontic brackets. Well, placement of orthodontic brackets is quite important, but I went through a review of the literature in my book and I found out that there are 20 different methods of placement in the literature. So things become very cumbersome. The orthodontist should choose a method which should align the marginal ridges in the posterior dentition and attain coordinate proportion of teeth and consonant smile in the anterior dentition. It shouldn't be taken as granted because placement of bracket positioning happens taking so much in granted that even manufacturer of brackets sometimes gives you their charts of placement of orthodontic brackets. I usually prefer placing brackets with respect to the margin ridges on the posterior dentition and with respect to the incisor edges with the help of gauge on the anterior dentition. Repositioning of faulty brackets at the end of alignment and leveling to avoid wire bending in the later stages. Well, if you want to avoid bending during the finishing and settling stage, at the end of space closure or in the middle of space closure, place a bracket right. If you see at the end of leveling alignment that there is some faulty bracket positioning, correct it. Well, in stages of the next stage is the leveling alignment stage. We will discuss in this stage loop versus straight wire appliance, leveling alignment of the impacted canines, leveling alignment of the block of teeth, leveling alignment of severely crowded teeth. By traditionally, different types of alignment and leveling bands or curves were built within the wires that was integral part of the straight wire appliance. But in contemporary orthodontics, the alignment arches especially have been gone. They have been taken over by the straight wires. Curves are still made in the wires to level the curve of spine or protect the open bite. But if you place the brackets but in case of open bite, you place the brackets more gingival on open bite teeth and more incisor on teeth which are in contact. Lower bite will be corrected and do not bleed curves in the wires. Same is the case with deep bite cases. Deep bite cases, to level the curve of spine, you need to place the brackets more incisor to level the curve of spine. So you can avoid curves, you can avoid bends in the wire in the modern previous edgewise appliances. Well, impacted canine is something that is traditionally said by many orthodontists that is something you need wire bending. You need to make monkey hooks, you need to make fishing rods, you need to make whip springs, you need to make baluster springs, you need to make auxiliary arches. But with the help of with the help and introduction of implants, the mini screws in orthodontics, you do not need this. You can use piggyback mechanics. You can use elastic threads on straight wires, or with the help of implants, you can use power chains, elastics, lactite springs, and you can easily avoid wire bending. And also you can take the canine within the arch. You can level align the canine quite easily with these mechanics. Then straight crowding of block of teeth. Usually segmental mechanics with loops are done to correct the block out teeth. Uh, Many orthodontists retract the teeth to relieve crowding, extract the teeth, retract the teeth in the extraction spaces to relieve anterior crowding. But with the help of modern flexible wires, mini screws and springs, this problem very much solved. You can take N-Fish with the help of implants. You can move the teeth backward on even on flexible wire. They will not move bodily, but they will tip. But you can relieve the crowding initially and then correct the root position later on in the leveling stage. Space Gluer loops versus sliding mechanics. Well, space glue is one of the most contested domain in orthodontics between loop mechanics and sliding mechanics. Conflicting claims of superiority of one technique over the other in terms of following characteristics have been made. These are the force system, friction and N-Fish loss, efficient space glue and overbite correction, artogenic effects, and cost. Force systems. The force system in space glue comprises three main components. This is the load deflection rate. Ideally, whatever you're doing, the mechanics should have a load deflection rate. Well, NiTi is the ideal material, whether in loops or in springs, that deliver the lowest load deflection rate. Unfortunately, in loop mechanics, NiTi loops cannot be made in dental office. If you want to make them, you need quite a lot of an expensive inventory. So there's no skill involved. You can do the same with the NiTi springs, which have the similar load deflection rate at the loops. So there's virtually no difference in these characteristics between the sliding mechanics and the loop mechanics. So one can use sliding mechanics without resorting to wire bending if it's considering a load deflection rate. Force level in sliding mechanics in measure. Though the overall force system cannot be measured, we can't judge the friction, we can't judge how much force will be eventually delivered to the tooth. But the amount of force that we actually apply can be measured, which cannot be done in loop mechanics. Well, moment to force ratio is most important consideration when using space glue, as it determines the quality of tooth movement, and it's one of the main characteristics where advocates of loop mechanics say that loop mechanics is better than sliding mechanics because the moment to force ratio can be measured. Loop mechanics, they say you can apply a definite moment to force ratio. You can't do it in sliding mechanics, but the fact is that in sliding mechanics, if you're using the right wires, like what a 1925 SS wire has a 10-degree play in a 17 torque 10-degree play in a 0.22 slot. So if you're using a 17-degree torque of a center inside of bracket, you are eventually expressing the 7-degree torque, which was advocated by Andrew, which he found in normal dentition. So countercouple is produced when we apply force by the interaction of the wire and the brackets, and that produces a moment to force ratio. This countercouple is also a judgment. This is also a guidelines. We vary the forces. We decreases the forces if the tooth is not moving bodily. Well, a study by Bertie Melson and Cortino in 2008 published in AGTO, that was a finite element study, found out that moment to force ratio is something that is quite variable. It depends on many factors. It depends upon the elasticity of the periodontal fibers. It depends upon the elasticity of the bone, its density. It's also depends on the morphology of the roots, the length of the roots. So it can be used mainly as guidelines. If you can't simply judge the moment to force ratio, you can't pinpoint that this is the exact moment to force ratio of this specific property. Orthodontic tooth movement should be used only as guidelines, as variable and dependent upon many factors. Monitor teeth by retraction, and you have to judge case by case. Bertie Melson found that the moment to force ratio of incisors was 10:1. For canine it was 11:1 or 12:1, while for premolar it was 9:1. So it's quite variable if you want to move bodily movements. At the moment to force ratio of each teeth is different, so it's become difficult for us to move teeth bodily en masse with giving a single moment to force ratio. So en masse retraction is quite difficult in loop mechanics and simple in sliding mechanics. Friction and N-Fish loss. It's generally said that N-Fish loss is more in sliding mechanics, and sliding mechanics are only favorable for type A or type B anchorage, type B or type C anchorage, and they are not favorable for type A anchorage and A anchorage, because a lot of force is lost in friction which we apply in sliding mechanics. Heavy forces are applied which actually causes anchorage loss. Friction is produced by the interaction of wire and the brackets, because the teeth have to slide over the wires. Friction is also produced by chemical binding. My advice would be to decrease frictions, use wider brackets, use heavy wires which have sufficient play, like what 1925 SS 1.22 slot. Use it for friction. Do not use lighter wires to avoid anchorage loss. Well, the claim that there is no anchorage loss or the minimum anchorage loss in loop mechanics is not evidence-based, because loop mechanics work on the principle of differential anchorage. In differential anchorage, we increase moment to force ratio of one group of teeth and decrease the moment to force ratio of the other group of teeth. When you do loop mechanics, and when the differential force tooth movements is involved, if you increase the anchorage of the posterior component, your anterior component won't move by bodily movement. It will move by tipping. It might be controlled tipping, but it will eventually move by tipping. So you can't move the incisors bodily movement in type A anchorage, theoretically. This was proved by finite element study by Patel, conducted in Journal of Contemporary Dentistry. Mushroom and teardrop loops are more effective for posterior anchorage, while T and keyhole loops are more effective for anterior torque, because mushroom and teardrop loops produce more moment to force ratio on the posterior segment, a high moment to force ratio on the posterior segment. So it causes the bodily movement of the posterior segment while tipping of the anterior segment, while the case was opposite in T loop and keyhole loop. Well, interesting study was conducted by Park, published in AJUDIO 2008. He compared implant supported sliding mechanics versus tool verified technique, and he found out that in sliding mechanics, which are supported by implants, which obviously give a type of anchorage, or even more than this, there was minimum or no statistically significant anchorage loss, because anchorage loss was only 0.2 millimeter, while that was found to be 2.5 millimeter in loop mechanics. Both loops are used in that technique. Anchorage loss, that's a problem with sliding mechanics using lighter forces, because McLaughlin had written a lot about it, where traditionally in straight wire appliance, and we use 600 gram as stainless steel spring, because they were also used in the conventional edgewise system and did the refraction. So these are quite heavy forces. McLaughlin, John Bennett, and Hugo Terwezi claimed that use lighter forces, use 100 or 150 gram of force to retract the tip, rather than resorting to heavy forces. While decreasing the tip, resorting to lighter forces will help you decrease anchorage loss, decrease the friction, and during orthodontic treatment. Efficient space closure. Well, a randomized clinical trial conducted by Kang on rate of canine retraction found out that loop mechanics closes space at 0.91 millimeter per month, while and that was with NITI, and TMA loops closes space at 0.87 millimeter per month with canine tipping of 0.71 degree per month for NITI, and 1.15 degree for TMA. So TMA is more canine tipping, less movement on 150 gram of force. Well, a study published by Huffman in AJUDIO 1983 using sliding mechanics space closure found that on lighter wires, on 0.16 inch wire, you can close space at 1.37 millimeter per month, and on 0.20 wires you can close space at 1.20 millimeter per month. But the anchorage loss is obviously a problem when you close space on lighter wires. But a randomized clinical trial published by Dixon Geo 2002 found mean rate of space closure 0.81 millimeter per month for NITI springs having 200 gram of force on 1925 SS wire, because I'm advocated to use 1925 SS wire for sliding mechanics, because there would be less tip loss and the space closure is equivalent to that of NITI loops. So you don't have to resort to wire bending. Well, a systematic review found that there is no difference between a 150 gram NITI spring and 200 gram NITI spring. That systematic review was conducted by Ball in 2008. And other important randomized clinical trial was conducted by Bond in June 2013, published in Geo, found that major determinant of orthodontic tooth movement was individual patient response. These are the rough guidelines values, the average values. Patient response vary. Like what we can close spaces more faster than in young patient as compared to elder patient because the density of the bone is more. Well, a very important study was published by Peter Miles in 2007. Wide bracket have greater rate of superciliar, and that is 1.2 millimeter per month than narrowed bracket, that is 0.9 millimeter per month. If you choosing want to aim for sliding mechanics, if you want to do wide wire bending, you want to do orthodontics without wire bending, use wider brackets and sliding mechanics, the rate of space would be more. It is also said you cannot correct the overbite while correcting the overchat simultaneously on sliding mechanics. It can only be done on loop mechanics. But with the help of mini implants, this can be done. We can change our mechanics with mini implants, like but if it's open bite case, use the low pull mechanics. With the mini implants, if it's a deep bite, use the high pull mechanics with the mini implants to correct the overbite. Arthrogenic effects. It's well documented in the literature that loops are uncomfortable for some patients with less vestibular depth. That study was conducted by Ray in AGOTO 2001. As I've shown that there's more trauma by loops. If the vestibular depth is less, the loop will eventually cause damage to the soft tissue. The loop was placed there was damage to the soft tissue. We kept the loop on the other side, which loop was segmented straight wide on this side. The soft tissue ulceration was eventually gone, but on the other side the ulceration is still there. Well, better rotational control with sliding mechanics, better control, better shape of the arch form, because when you bend the wire there is a certain change in the arch form. In straight wires, this arch form is prefabricated. There is no change from the prefabricated arch form, so arch form coordination is quite difficult with loop mechanics compared to sliding mechanics. Well, there's a claim that because light continuous forces or light continuous forces are placed for the tooth in sliding mechanics, so there's no rest period involved during sliding mechanics, and there are more chances of root damage. But over the period of time, it became evidence-based that root absorption is more individual-based, dependent on teeth to teeth, individual to individual, and also there was no difference in a study published by Oman in Angle Orthodont 1995 that continuous forces in amount of severity of root absorption, in the amount of root absorption, there was no difference between the continuous mechanics versus intermittent forces, and continuous forces are more effective for root tooth movement as compared to the intermittent forces. Now the cost. One main factor with the orthodontist thing is the cost. They think it's cheaper to make loops. They think it's expensive to use sliding mechanics, but that's not the case. In loop mechanics, if you use the stainless steel wire, that will generate heavy forces. A study by Faulkner in AGOTO 1991 found that the stainless steel 1 millimeter activation of stainless steel spring applied 450 gram of force, that is 4.4 Newton, which is quite heavy for sliding loop mechanics, that will eventually cause the encourage loss. So we use TMA loops or NiTi loops. TMA loops can be made in the dental office, but a TMA wire will cost you $5 in comparison to a NiTi spring that will cost you only $1. But the better option in loop mechanics is NiTi loops. NiTi loops do not need your skill. NiTi loops are simply supplied by the manufacturer, where few people have the armamentarium at their clinic to make a NiTi loop. TMA loops underwent 10 times more distortion than NiTi loops. So obviously NiTi loops are more better. A study conducted by Rose in AGOTO 2009 found out that NiTi loops produce movement forces of 10-1 or a great range of deactivation as compared to TMA counterparts. So NiTi loops are much more better. You do not need your skill. You don't need wire bending in your clinic. You can simply use the bended loops if you want to avoid the sliding mechanics. If you're a big advocate of loop mechanics, simply use the prefabricated loops. Well, need to remove for reactivation. If there's more than 4 mm space plug involved, you need to remove your loops for reactivation. to make gable bends in the loops, so more chairside time is involved. If there is more than 4 millimeter of space glue involved in sliding mechanics, you can simply change the spring without removing the wire. You can simply remove the ligature, but in loop mechanics you need to remove the loop because our loops are cinched back behind the molars, so many times you need to change the whole wire. Well, these are different techniques by which sliding mechanics can be done. Finishing and settling. A proper bracket selection and placement when done with controlled space glue, there is no special amount of finishing bands. Well, if the position of bracket right, remove the tooth poorly, why to give finishing bands. But if there is some loss of tip, reposition the bracket. Sometimes there is loss of tip in the incisors. Simply re-ligate the wire, lighter wire, and the tip would be corrected. For measure of rotation of the canine, re-ligate the tooth on flexible wires using steel ligature on the display, and the tip would, and the rotation would be corrected. For torque issues, if some torque is missing on the incisors or any other tooth, use heavier wires, the full dimensional wires, because you are not doing sliding anymore. Simply use full dimensional wires and it will correct the torque problem. Also, giving torque on wire brings similar effects of torque in the face of the bracket. When you give torque on the wire, one end of the wire will move up. The end of the wire, which was in fact going in the depth of bracket, will move up. When it move up, it is more higher from the rest of the wires, so it will create vertical problems. It will create leveling problems in the brackets and eventually in the teeth. Settling. At the end of space glue, the teeth are in a state of arch-bound phenomena. Well, that term was basically used by William Profit in contemporary orthodontics. The wires are bound in the teeth are bound in the wires. The heavy wires do not let the teeth to settle down in the occlusion. There are two types of settling. One is simply debond the bracket, keep the retainers. That is a natural settling. But when you have to reproduce the cases for exams, or you have to write in journals, or even clinical settling, the mechanical settling is better than the natural settling, because in this way you are definite wherever you are settling in the case. In ideal finish cases, if you do not know how to bend loops in your wires, how to make wire bands, you can simply use elastics. Well, the settling I use heavy wires in the lower arch, because my lower bracket positioning is good, because I can actually see the bracket from upside without indirect vision. In upper arch, bracket positioning is sometimes poor. There's more problems because modulations are not aligned, because the brackets are placed on indirect vision. So in settling with elastic traction and close make tools are very important. You have to segment the wire, especially in the upper arch. You can also segment the wire in the lower arch, depending on the case to case. You simply have to maintain the traction of the elastic. It should be class 3 traction in class 3 cases by the camouflage or surgical cases, and class 2 traction in class 2 cases. In class 1 cases, you can give a box elastic, otherwise it should be diagonal. Well, it was a settling case referred to me. The orthodontist was doing it from the last 5 years. He was in quarter class giving pouch chain. There was a sort of roller coaster effects. He was unable to finish. He actually referred to me. I segmented the wire on the anterior segment, gave posterior diagonal elastic, maintained the class 2 elastic for maintenance of overjet, lighter elastic in 5/16 was used in this case. Eventually, the arches were settled down with a posterior wire cut. This is our final settling results. The minor open bites are corrected with the help of elastics. The midline is on. The posterior dentition is very much in occlusion. Well, this is another case that was impacted canine case. I settled down this case. If you see this, the transformation on this side, I'm initially settling the molar. Later, I given a class 2 elastic because I extracted first premolar in this case. I need to protect the tooth. So I let this tooth and leave orthodontics, first molar, and this tooth was settled down. The molar was settled down with the help of elastic. Well, these are the final occlusal results. Anti-box elastic was given to increase over bite.